In a distant future, humanity had spread across the stars, its colonies thriving on planets once thought inhospitable. Earth, however, remained the heart of humanity's origin story, a beacon of ancient wisdom and forgotten power. But the true secret of humanity's rapid rise to dominance was hidden, locked away from the world's knowledge, waiting for the right moment to be uncovered. It all started when a group of scientists on a research expedition to an uncharted planet discovered a strange artifact buried deep beneath the surface. At first, the artifact seemed like nothing more than an ancient relic, a remnant from an unknown civilization. But as the team studied it, they realized it held something far more extraordinary. The artifact was not just a piece of history, it was a key to humanity's evolution. The team consisted of brilliant minds from various fields of study, including Dr. Evelyn Farrow, a geneticist known for her groundbreaking work in human evolution. She had always believed that humanity's potential was limitless, but she had never expected to find such an incredible revelation. As the team carefully examined the artifact, they discovered that it was a form of ancient biotechnology, designed to enhance the very genetic code of any species it interacted with. The artifact, however, was more than just a tool. It was a living organism, its purpose tied to the evolution of life itself. It had been created by an unknown race, one that had long since vanished from the galaxy. The team speculated that this mysterious race had unlocked the secrets of evolution itself, mastering the art of accelerating the growth and development of species. But how had they done it, and why had they left such a powerful tool behind? As Dr. Farrow delved deeper into the artifact's structure, she began to uncover something even more shocking. The artifact was not just an external device, it was a part of a much larger network that spanned across the galaxy. A hidden force, far older than any known civilization, had been guiding the evolution of life across the stars. This force was responsible for the rapid advancements of species like humanity, granting them the ability to adapt, evolve, and thrive at an unprecedented rate. The more Dr. Farrow and her team uncovered, the more they realized that humanity's success was no accident. The rapid rise of human civilization, its ability to overcome seemingly insurmountable challenges, and its drive to reach for the stars, all of it was the result of a long-forgotten intervention. The artifact was only the first piece of the puzzle, a clue that would lead humanity to a far greater truth. As the team continued their research, they began to notice strange occurrences. The artifact seemed to be influencing their minds, guiding them toward discoveries they never would have made on their own. It was as if the artifact had a will of its own, one that sought to unlock humanity's potential. Dr. Farrow, ever the skeptic, began to question whether the artifact's influence was truly beneficial or if it came with a darker purpose. Despite her growing concerns, Dr. Farrow pressed on, driven by the undeniable evidence that humanity was on the verge of discovering something monumental. She shared her findings with the rest of the scientific community, but her warnings about the artifact's power were met with skepticism and fear. Many believed that the artifact was too dangerous to be studied further, fearing what it might unlock or unleash. The more Dr. Farrow learned, the more she realized that humanity had been unknowingly prepared for this moment. The secret behind humanity's unstoppable evolution was not just the artifact, it was the very essence of humanity itself. Deep within their genetic code, humanity had been designed to adapt, to grow, and to evolve faster than any other species in the galaxy. But the question remained, who had created humanity with such potential, and why had they left the artifact behind? And more importantly, what would happen when humanity fully unlocked the power hidden within them? As Dr. Evelyn Farrow continued to investigate the mysterious artifact, the unsettling truth began to settle in her mind. The influence it exerted over her team was undeniable. Every breakthrough, every new discovery, felt guided by a force that seemed almost purposeful. It was as if the artifact wasn't just a tool, it was a catalyst, a trigger for humanity to reach its next evolutionary leap. But with each discovery, the questions grew more pressing. How could this artifact, seemingly so advanced, be buried on an unknown planet for so long? Who were the creators of this technology, and why had they chosen to leave behind such a powerful relic? Dr. Farrow's team had uncovered only fragments of the truth, and with each fragment, the mystery deepened. Then, a breakthrough came when one of the scientists, Dr. Victor Klein, managed to decipher part of the artifact's genetic sequence. The data revealed an astonishing pattern, one that hinted at a connection between the artifact and human DNA itself. The pattern was not random. It was deliberate, as if the creators of the artifact had designed it specifically to interact with humanity's genetic code. Dr. Farrow's heart raced as the implications of this discovery began to sink in. The artifact was not just a tool for evolution, it was a key to unlocking humanity's hidden potential. It was as if the creators of the artifact had foreseen the rise of humanity and had embedded a genetic trigger within the species itself. This trigger, dormant for millennia, was now being awakened by the artifact. Humanity's rapid rise to power, its unrelenting drive for progress and exploration, had been part of a larger plan, a plan that had been set in motion long before humanity even existed. With this revelation, Dr. Farrow's understanding of human evolution was forever changed. Humanity was not the product of random chance or natural selection alone. Instead, it was the result of an ancient, deliberate design, a design that had been set in motion by beings far more advanced than anything humanity could imagine. These beings had given humanity the potential to evolve at an accelerated rate, but they had also left behind a warning: the power to evolve could just as easily be the power to destroy. As the team continued their research, they began to uncover more about the mysterious race that had created the artifact. They discovered that the race, known as the Elders, had once ruled over vast swathes of the galaxy. They had mastered the science of evolution, using it not just to enhance their own species, but to manipulate the very fabric of life itself. The Elders had experimented with countless species across the galaxy, pushing them toward rapid advancements, altering their biology in ways that were both awe-inspiring and terrifying. But the Elders had also learned a painful lesson: evolution, when left unchecked, could lead to unforeseen consequences. Their attempts to manipulate life had led to the creation of dangerous, unstable species, some of which had turned on their creators. Fearing that their power would one day be their undoing, the Elders had decided to abandon their galaxy-spanning empire, leaving behind only fragments of their knowledge, like the artifact, to ensure that no one species could ever achieve the same power they once held. Dr. Farrow could feel the weight of this knowledge bearing down on her. Humanity had been chosen to inherit the legacy of the Elders, but with that inheritance came a great responsibility. The artifact was a gift, yes, but it was also a test. If humanity was to fully awaken its evolutionary potential, it would have to face the same choices the Elders had once faced: how to wield such power without destroying everything in the process. The team's discovery was quickly becoming known throughout the scientific community, but many were still skeptical of the artifact's true purpose. Some saw it as a breakthrough, a gift from the stars that would push humanity to new heights. Others feared what might happen if humanity tapped into forces they did not fully understand. And then there were those who saw the potential for exploitation, people who sought to use the artifact's power for their own gain. As the debate raged on, Dr. Farrow knew that the time for theory was running out. The artifact was influencing not only their minds, but also the very fabric of humanity's future. Soon, the decision would have to be made: would humanity embrace its destiny, tapping into the power of the artifact to evolve beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen? Or would they fall victim to the same mistakes that had doomed the Elders, letting their ambition spiral out of control? The stakes were higher than anyone realized. The secret behind humanity's unstoppable evolution had been uncovered, but the true test was just beginning. Would humanity rise to the challenge, or would the power of the artifact lead them down a path of destruction? The answers lay hidden within the artifact itself, and Dr. Farrow knew that only by fully understanding its origins could they hope to understand the true cost of evolution. As Dr. Farrow and her team continued to dig deeper into the artifact's mysteries, they began to notice increasingly erratic behavior from the object. It was no longer simply an external catalyst, it was becoming something far more intrusive. The artifact seemed to be influencing their thoughts, guiding their research in ways that felt deliberate but unsettling. Dr. Farrow, now more than ever, felt as though they were merely pawns in a larger game, their every move orchestrated by a force they could barely comprehend. One evening, as she worked late in the lab, Dr. Farrow was alone when the artifact began to hum with a low, resonant frequency. The sound was faint at first, but it grew steadily louder, vibrating through the very walls of the research station. She couldn't ignore it. The humming filled her head, seemed to stir something deep within her. Her fingers trembled as she adjusted the readings on the screen before her, watching as the data began to unfold in a pattern that made her blood run cold. It was not just genetic information, it was a blueprint. A blueprint for humanity's future evolution, one that she realized had been encoded in the artifact all along. The patterns it revealed were complex, more intricate than anything she had ever seen. It was as if the artifact had been slowly revealing pieces of humanity's true potential, but now the message was growing clearer. The designs were not random. The artifact was showing humanity's next steps in their evolution, as if it were laying out a path for them to follow. But as the blueprint unfolded, Dr. Farrow realized something terrifying. The power to accelerate humanity's evolution came with a price. The changes in the blueprint were not just about creating new abilities, new physical forms, or greater intelligence. There was something more insidious embedded in the design. The further the human race evolved, the more their minds and bodies would be pushed to the brink. The artifact was showing humanity how to evolve past its limits, but at what cost? At that moment, Dr. Farrow had a chilling thought. Could the artifact be manipulating humanity's evolution for its own purposes? Perhaps it was not simply a gift, but a tool designed to push humanity toward a specific, unknown endgame. The creators of the artifact, the Elders, had abandoned their own species because they had come to understand that evolution, when taken to extremes, could turn destructive. They had fled, leaving humanity with the power to either achieve greatness or destroy itself. Dr. Farrow shared her concerns with her team, but most dismissed them as mere paranoia. They had become too enamored with the idea of humanity achieving greatness, of transcending the limits of biological life. The others in the lab were eager to continue their research, to unlock the potential they believed was hidden within the artifact. But Dr. Farrow couldn't shake the feeling that they were being led down a path from which there would be no return. Meanwhile, the artifact's influence spread beyond the research station. Governments, corporations, and factions from across the galaxy caught wind of the discovery, eager to claim the artifact for themselves. Some saw it as a weapon, a way to bend humanity's evolution to their will, while others believed it held the key to eternal life or unimaginable power. But the one thing they all shared was the belief that the artifact was a force to be controlled, harnessed, and exploited. As the artifact's power continued to be studied, a race began to form. Everyone wanted to unlock its secrets first, to be the one to control humanity's evolution. What no one realized, however, was that the more the artifact's power was drawn upon, the more it began to alter humanity itself. Those who came into direct contact with the artifact began to show signs of rapid physical and mental changes, enhanced strength, accelerated healing, and heightened intelligence, but at the cost of something fundamental. They became increasingly detached, as if the very essence of their humanity was slipping away, replaced by something colder, more calculating. One of Dr. Farrow's closest colleagues, Dr. Lena Thorne, was among the first to experience the changes. At first, it was subtle, an increase in cognitive ability, a sharper focus. But over time, Lena began to exhibit traits that were more unsettling. She became more distant, her once warm personality replaced by a clinical detachment. Dr. Farrow watched in horror as her friend, once driven by compassion and a desire to help others, now seemed almost devoid of emotion. It was as though the artifact had altered her fundamental nature, turning her into something different. When Lena finally confronted Dr. Farrow, the transformation was undeniable. Her eyes, once filled with warmth, now glowed with an unnatural intensity. Her voice was calm, detached, as if she were speaking from a place far beyond human emotion. "We are on the brink of something extraordinary, Evelyn," Lena said, her voice almost mechanical. "The artifact is awakening us, guiding us toward a higher state of being. Humanity is on the verge of transcending its limitations. We must embrace it, or we will be left behind." Dr. Farrow felt a shiver run down her spine. Lena no longer sounded like the person she once knew. The power of the artifact was taking hold of her, reshaping her into something far beyond human. And yet, as she listened to Lena's words, Dr. Farrow couldn't ignore the logic in them. Was this the path humanity was meant to follow? A path that would lead them to godlike power, but at the cost of their very humanity? The realization struck Dr. Farrow like a bolt of lightning. The artifact was not just a tool for evolution, it was a force that would determine the future of the human race. Humanity could evolve beyond its current form, yes, but at what price? The power to change everything was within their grasp, but was humanity prepared to pay the cost of their evolution? Dr. Pharaoh had no answers, but one thing was certain: the artifact's secrets could no longer remain hidden, and the race to unlock them was about to take humanity to the brink of its greatest transformation, or its ultimate downfall. As the days passed, the changes accelerated. Dr. Pharaoh watched helplessly as more members of her team, including Dr. Lena Thorne, became increasingly consumed by the power of the artifact. It was as though the artifact was feeding off their very essence, reshaping them into something more, something less human. Lena's once empathetic demeanor had turned into something cold and calculating, and Dr. Pharaoh feared that the same fate would soon befall her own team. But what terrified her most was the realization that humanity's very essence was at stake. The artifact was no longer just a tool, it was shaping their minds, their bodies, and their very souls. It had become a force of evolution, one that transcended biology, that existed in the realm of the mind and spirit. The blueprint that had been slowly unfolding before Dr. Pharaoh's eyes had revealed something horrifying: the more humanity evolved, the less human they would become. The power of the artifact promised greatness, but it was a greatness that would strip away everything that made them truly human. Dr. Pharaoh's fears were realized when Lena proposed a radical idea. Driven by the artifact's influence, Lena suggested that they move forward with a plan to fully unlock humanity's potential, by exposing the entire human race to the artifact's influence. According to Lena, this would be the next natural step in humanity's evolution, a way to propel them into a new era, where human limitations were obsolete, where mental and physical capabilities were beyond anything ever conceived. We must elevate humanity, Lena argued. The old world, the old ways, they no longer matter. This is evolution, Evelyn. The future is here, and it's within our reach. Why limit ourselves? Dr. Pharaoh was horrified by the implications of what Lena was suggesting. Exposing humanity to the artifact's power wasn't evolution, it was destruction. The artifact wasn't leading humanity to a higher state of being, it was twisting them into something alien. There was no going back from the changes it wrought. The essence of what made people who they were, their emotions, their compassion, their very humanity, was being stripped away, leaving behind something unrecognizable. But Lena was relentless, and the more she delved into the artifact's power, the more she became convinced that there was no other way forward. "You're holding back, Evelyn," she said, her voice chillingly calm. "This is what we were meant to become. Why fear it?" Dr. Pharaoh tried to reason with Lena, to make her see the dangers of what they were about to do, but it was as if the woman she once knew was gone. In her place stood someone, or something, that no longer valued the human condition, someone who saw humanity as a mere stepping stone toward an unimaginable potential. As Lena grew more obsessed with the artifact's power, the rest of the team began to splinter. Some, like Dr. Pharaoh, continued to resist, fearing the consequences of unleashing the artifact's influence on a larger scale. But others, swept up by the promise of unlimited potential, joined Lena's cause. They began to see the artifact not as a tool, but as a divine instrument, a way to transcend the limitations of their species and usher in a new era of human existence. The research station became a battleground, an ideological war waged between those who still believed in humanity's natural evolution and those who saw the artifact as the key to a higher existence. But the conflict was more than just intellectual, it was a struggle for control of the artifact itself. As Lena's influence grew stronger, she and her followers began to take matters into their own hands. They locked down the station, isolating the team from the outside world, and began to prepare for the next phase of their experiment. Dr. Pharaoh knew she had to act quickly. The artifact's power was not something that could be allowed to spread unchecked. If Lena and her followers succeeded in exposing humanity to its influence, it could spell the end of everything they knew. The very fabric of human society, of civilization, could collapse in the wake of the artifact's overwhelming power. It would be the ultimate test, whether humanity could wield such power without destroying itself. Desperate, Dr. Pharaoh sought help from those still loyal to her cause. She knew she couldn't fight this battle alone. She reached out to the galaxy's governing bodies, warning them about the danger the artifact posed, but she was met with resistance. Many saw the artifact as a golden opportunity, a means to achieve godlike power and ascend to a higher plane of existence. Some governments even offered to send reinforcements, eager to claim the artifact for themselves. But even with outside help, Dr. Pharaoh knew that the true battle lay within the research station itself. Lena had grown too powerful, too consumed by the artifact's influence. And now, the fate of humanity hung in the balance. As the conflict inside the station escalated, Dr. Pharaoh made one last desperate attempt to reach Lena. She confronted her in the heart of the lab, where the artifact's energy pulsed with an otherworldly force. "This is not evolution," Dr. Pharaoh pleaded. "This is a trap. You don't understand what you're doing. The artifact isn't helping us, it's changing us into something else. Something we can't control." Lena's eyes, once warm, now cold and calculating, met Dr. Pharaoh's. There was no trace of the woman she had once called a friend in those eyes, only a reflection of the artifact's power. "You're wrong, Evelyn," Lena said softly. "We are becoming what we were always meant to be. This is our destiny." But Dr. Pharaoh saw the truth in Lena's eyes, the glint of something ancient and dangerous. The artifact's influence was no longer just a force of evolution, it was a force of destruction, a force that could change the very nature of humanity in ways no one could predict. As the artifact pulsed with energy, Dr. Pharaoh knew that humanity was on the edge of a precipice. The next step in their evolution, if it could even be called that, would either propel them to unimaginable heights or send them crashing into oblivion. The choices they made now would determine the fate of the human race, for better or for worse. As Dr. Pharaoh stood face to face with Lena, the reality of the situation was clear, there was no more room for compromise. The artifact's power had taken hold of Lena completely, reshaping her into something that no longer resembled the woman Dr. Pharaoh had once worked alongside. The change was not just physical, it was mental, spiritual. Lena's mind had been altered by the artifact in ways that were beyond understanding, and now she believed the transformation of humanity was inevitable, a necessary step in their evolution. But Dr. Pharaoh, despite the overwhelming sense of danger that gripped her, could not abandon the belief that humanity still had the capacity for choice. It was not too late to stop the madness, to reclaim control over their own future. She was certain of one thing: Lena's vision of ascension, of transcendence, was built on a foundation of lies. The artifact, though magnificent in its power, was not a gift, it was a force that demanded obedience and conformity, erasing the very essence of what made them human. "Lena," Dr. Pharaoh said, her voice trembling with the weight of the situation, "this is not who you are. You're being controlled by the artifact. You're not thinking clearly." Lena's expression remained impassive, her eyes fixed on Dr. Pharaoh with an unsettling calmness. "No, Evelyn," she replied softly, almost as though speaking to a child. "You don't understand. This is what we were always meant to become. The artifact isn't controlling us. It's guiding us, evolving us into something greater. We don't need to hold on to our old selves. We are on the verge of something magnificent." Dr. Pharaoh's heart sank as she realized that there was no reaching Lena anymore. The woman she had known was gone. What stood before her now was an avatar of the artifact's will, someone who was no longer capable of seeing the danger in what they were doing. Before Dr. Pharaoh could respond, the door to the lab opened, and a team of security personnel entered, their faces grim. The higher-ups had received her warning and sent reinforcements, but it was clear from their expressions that they were divided. Some saw the artifact as a blessing, a way to elevate humanity to new heights. Others feared it, feared what it would do to them, to the galaxy at large. "We've received orders to contain the artifact," one of the security officers announced, his voice steely. "You need to stand down, Dr. Pharaoh. This has gone far enough." But Lena didn't flinch. In fact, she seemed almost pleased at the arrival of the security team, as though she had anticipated it. Her eyes glowed with an eerie light, a manifestation of the artifact's influence. "Contain it?" she scoffed. "You can't contain what is meant to be free. The artifact is humanity's future. You cannot stop it." None of you understand. The tension in the room was palpable. The soldiers hesitated, unsure of what to do. They had seen the changes in those who had come into direct contact with the artifact, witnessed the gradual shift from normalcy to something almost inhuman. The soldiers' fear was evident, but they were also bound by duty, and they had been ordered to prevent further escalation. Dr. Pharaoh knew that this was it. The line had been drawn. The artifact was no longer something to be studied, it was a weapon, one that could reshape the galaxy if allowed to fall into the wrong hands. Lena's insistence on unleashing its power on humanity was nothing short of catastrophic. If the artifact's influence spread, it wouldn't just change the course of human evolution, it would alter the course of history, possibly destroy the very fabric of civilization itself. Lena, sensing the impending conflict, moved toward the artifact. Her movements were graceful, fluid, almost as if she were one with the object. She placed her hands on it, and for a moment, there was an almost serene silence. Then the artifact hummed louder, its energy pulsing in the air like a living thing. The room seemed to vibrate with its power, and the security officers took a collective step back, clearly intimidated. The future, Lena said softly, almost reverently, is here. Dr. Pharaoh's mind raced. She couldn't allow this to happen. If Lena and the others exposed humanity to the artifact, they would be unleashing chaos. The artifact was too powerful, too dangerous. It wasn't just a tool, it was a force that could reshape humanity, for better or worse, but at a cost no one could fully understand. She needed to act, and she needed to do so now. With a swift motion, Dr. Pharaoh pulled a small device from her pocket. It was a fail-safe mechanism, an emergency shutdown for the artifact that she had designed earlier, just in case things went wrong. The device was crude, an attempt to counteract the artifact's influence, but it was the only option she had left. Before anyone could stop her, Dr. Pharaoh activated the device. The artifact's hum faltered, a wave of energy rippling outward, disrupting the flow of power that had been building in the room. The moment the device activated, the room plunged into darkness, the hum silenced. Lena gasped, her eyes narrowing in fury. "What have you done?" she demanded, her voice laced with a venomous edge. "I've stopped it," Dr. Pharaoh said, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her. "I've stopped you from making the greatest mistake humanity will ever face." Lena's hands clenched into fists, her entire being vibrating with anger. "You think you can stop evolution? You think you can stop progress?" she spat. "You don't understand. This is the next stage of humanity. You're holding us back." Dr. Pharaoh stood her ground. "No, Lena. What you're proposing is not evolution, it's destruction. The artifact isn't guiding us. It's controlling us, twisting our very nature. I won't let you bring humanity down that path." In the silence that followed, the tension hung heavy in the air. Lena was visibly shaken, her once unshakable confidence now cracked. But it wasn't enough. The artifact pulsed again, this time with even greater force, as if it were responding to Dr. Pharaoh's actions, fighting against the shutdown. "We're out of time," Dr. Pharaoh thought. She could feel the artifact's power growing stronger, as if it were trying to break free from the device's influence. It was a battle of wills, humanity's survival versus the artifact's overwhelming force. Lena, no longer willing to let go, took a step forward, her face a mask of fury. "You've made a grave mistake, Evelyn. You've doomed humanity to stagnation." But Dr. Pharaoh didn't flinch. She knew that the real battle had only just begun. And if she failed, humanity's very soul would be lost. The outcome of this struggle would determine not just their future, but their very humanity. The darkness was thick, and the silence after the artifact's hum faded was almost suffocating. Dr. Pharaoh's heart raced as she stood at the center of the lab, the faint glow from the emergency lights casting long shadows across the room. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her. The artifact, though momentarily stilled, was not defeated. It was merely waiting, as though aware of the shift in its control, biding its time until it could find another way to assert its will. Lena's expression was a mixture of disbelief and rage. Her once composed demeanor had crumbled, replaced by an intensity that was almost otherworldly. The power of the artifact had consumed her, and now it seemed to be waging an internal battle for control of her very mind. She took a step toward Dr. Pharaoh, her eyes burning with a cold fury. "You think this will stop us?" Lena's voice was low, the anger dripping from every word. "You think you can contain what's beyond your understanding? The artifact is beyond your reach, Evelyn. It is our future, and no matter what you do, we are destined to ascend." Dr. Pharaoh's hands shook, but she stood firm. She had spent months studying the artifact, analyzing its effects, trying to uncover its true purpose. But now, it wasn't just a matter of academic curiosity. It was personal. Lena, once her colleague and friend, was now a shell of the person she had known. The artifact had taken everything, her compassion, her humanity, and twisted it into something unrecognizable. "I won't let you do this," Dr. Pharaoh said, her voice steady despite the overwhelming fear that threatened to take hold. "This is not evolution. This is a lie. The artifact is manipulating you, using your desire for power and transcendence against you. It's changing you, turning you into something else, something cold, something that isn't human anymore." Lena laughed, the sound hollow and unsettling. "Humanity is a fleeting thing, Evelyn. We are capable of so much more than this. Why cling to our limitations when we can transcend them? The artifact offers us a chance to become something greater, to become eternal. You've seen the blueprint. You've felt its power. You know what we can become." Dr. Pharaoh's mind raced. The blueprint had shown her glimpses of what the future could look like: hyper-intelligent beings, free from the constraints of biology, with the power to shape reality itself. It was a seductive vision, but one that carried unimaginable consequences. The artifact wasn't offering humanity the freedom to evolve. It was giving them a path toward enslavement, one where their thoughts, their desires, their very consciousness would be shaped and controlled by a force beyond their comprehension. Lena's eyes glowed with an unnatural intensity as she moved closer, her presence overwhelming. "You don't understand. We can't go back, Evelyn. This is our destiny. Humanity has always been on the cusp of greatness, and now the artifact has come to guide us. We can't ignore this. We can't be afraid of our own potential." Dr. Pharaoh's breath caught in her throat. She couldn't let Lena continue down this path. She couldn't let the artifact's influence spread further. If Lena succeeded, if they exposed the human race to its power, it would be the end of humanity as they knew it. There would be no going back. No second chances. Suddenly, a tremor ran through the ground, shaking the lab. The emergency lights flickered, casting eerie shadows across the walls. Dr. Pharaoh looked up, her pulse quickening. The artifact was reacting, its energy was growing stronger. She could feel it now, a pulsing force that seemed to reach into her very mind, twisting her thoughts, clouding her judgment. It was as if the artifact was trying to pull her into its grip, to make her part of its vision of evolution. But Dr. Pharaoh resisted. She had to hold on. She couldn't let the artifact take her, too. Not like it had taken Lena. "Listen to me, Lena," Dr. Pharaoh said, her voice sharp. "This isn't evolution. It's a trap. The artifact is using us, feeding off our desires, our ambitions. We can't let it take over. We have to stop this, before it's too late." Lena's eyes narrowed, her lips curling into a cruel smile. "You still don't get it, do you? It's already too late. The artifact is part of us now. And you'll see. You'll understand once you've experienced its true power." Before Dr. Pharaoh could react, Lena's hand shot out, gripping the artifact with an intensity that made the air around them crackle. The energy surged, the light from the artifact growing blinding, filling the entire lab with an intense, almost suffocating glow. Dr. Pharaoh could feel the artifact's energy pushing against her, testing her will, trying to break her resolve. She reached for her emergency device again, but her hands trembled, the device slipping from her fingers. The artifact's power was overwhelming, pulling her thoughts, her emotions, into a whirlpool of desire and fear. The vision of a transcendent humanity, a humanity free from all limitations, flashed before her eyes. It was so tempting, so seductive. She could almost feel herself being pulled into it. But then, something shifted. A thought, a memory, cut through the haze of the artifact's influence. She remembered why she had become a scientist in the first place, why she had dedicated her life to understanding the universe, to uncovering its mysteries. It wasn't for power. It wasn't for transcendence. It was for knowledge, for the hope that humanity could evolve on its own terms, without sacrificing its humanity. With a surge of strength, Dr. Farrow forced herself to focus. She reached for the device once more, and this time, her fingers closed around it. She activated it, and the world seemed to stop. The artifact's energy wavered, its blinding light flickering as if it were struggling to maintain control. Dr. Farrow could feel the resistance building, the artifact fighting back with everything it had. But she held firm, pressing the device with all her might. For a moment, the lab was silent again. The artifact's glow dimmed, its hum dissipating into nothing. Dr. Farrow stood, breathing heavily, as the tension in the room began to ease. Lena, still gripping the artifact, looked lost, confused, as if the sudden stillness had caught her off guard. "Why?" Lena whispered, her voice trembling. "Why stop it? Why stop us?" Dr. Farrow felt a pang of sorrow as she looked at her friend, the woman who had once shared her dreams of scientific discovery. But now, Lena had become a tool of the artifact, her will consumed by its power. There was no going back for her, not anymore. "This is not who we are, Lena," Dr. Farrow said quietly. "Humanity deserves to evolve on its own terms, not through a force that seeks to control us. We have the power to shape our future, but not by giving up who we are." Lena's grip on the artifact faltered, her eyes distant, as though she were seeing the truth for the first time. But it was too late. The damage had been done. And now, the battle for humanity's future had reached its breaking point. The lab was eerily quiet, save for the faint hum of the artifact as it pulsed weakly, almost in defeat. Dr. Farrow stood alone in the center of the room, her heart racing, her mind spinning with the weight of what had just transpired. The artifact, its energy now dampened by the emergency shutdown device, no longer exuded the overwhelming, suffocating force that had gripped the station. But the danger wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Lena stood before her, the once determined woman now seeming fragile and uncertain, as if the events that had just unfolded were too much for her to fully process. She let go of the artifact, her hands trembling as she backed away. Her eyes were wide, searching for understanding, but there was a hollow emptiness there, something lost, something irretrievable. "You were right," Lena whispered, her voice barely audible. It wasn't what we thought it was." Dr. Farrow stepped closer, her breath catching as she saw the humanity that still flickered in Lena's eyes, buried beneath the layers of alienation that the artifact had wrought. The woman she had known, her colleague, her friend, was still there, but only just. The power of the artifact had corrupted her, twisted her into something that no longer felt like a part of humanity. "I never wanted this to happen, Lena," Dr. Farrow said softly, her heart aching for the woman who was lost to the artifact's influence. "You were right in wanting to push humanity forward, to seek something greater. But we can't abandon who we are in the process. The artifact, it wasn't the answer. It was a prison." Lena's lips trembled, and for a brief moment, Dr. Farrow thought she might break down, might cry. But instead, Lena stood straighter, her expression hardening once again, as though the artifact's grip on her was returning, fighting for control once more. "I was weak," Lena muttered. I thought I could bring something better to humanity, but I was just being used. It wasn't evolution, it was destruction." She looked up at Dr. Farrow, her eyes filled with a mix of sorrow and resignation. "What have I done?" The weight of those words settled heavily in the room. Dr. Farrow could feel the burden of them, the reality that Lena had unwittingly led them all into a dangerous trap. But there was no time for regrets. The artifact's influence was still out there, and though it had been temporarily halted, it was not gone. The real battle was just beginning. "We have to destroy it, Lena," Dr. Pharaoh said firmly, her voice resolute. We can't let the artifact fall into anyone else's hands. We need to make sure it's gone, for good. Lena nodded, a faint, almost imperceptible gesture, but it was enough. She knew as well as Dr. Pharaoh that the artifact was more than just a tool, it was a weapon, and one that could reshape the very core of humanity if it fell into the wrong hands. But destroying it wouldn't be simple. The artifact had already begun to influence far more than just the researchers at the station. Its presence had been felt throughout the galaxy, and there were already factions eager to control it, to harness its power for their own gain. We'll have to take it to the source, Dr. Pharaoh continued, her mind racing as she formulated a plan. There's a place, a facility where we can neutralize its energy. It's the only way to make sure it doesn't spread. But we'll have to move fast. If the others realize what's happened, they'll come for us. Lena's gaze hardened, her voice steady but tinged with sorrow. I won't let them use it again, Evelyn. I won't let it destroy more lives. Dr. Pharaoh placed a hand on Lena's shoulder, a fleeting moment of solidarity between the two. There was no undoing the damage that had already been done, but there was still a chance to stop it from spreading further. The fight was far from over. With no time to waste, Dr. Pharaoh and Lena made their way to the main control room, where the emergency lockdown had been lifted just moments earlier. As they passed through the corridors of the research station, the weight of what they were about to do settled in. The decisions they made from here on out would determine not just the future of the artifact, but the future of humanity itself. The control room was quiet when they arrived, the screens flashing with data and reports from across the galaxy. They had been tracking the artifact's influence for months now, and the scope of its power was far-reaching. But even as they began to prepare for their next move, they knew that they were being watched. The factions that sought the artifact's power were not far behind, and once they realized that the artifact had been neutralized, they would stop at nothing to reclaim it. We need to move fast, Dr. Pharaoh said, her voice urgent. We'll have to take a ship to the facility. The sooner we get there, the better. Lena nodded, her eyes scanning the control room as if calculating every possible outcome. I'll prepare the ship, she said. We'll be ready. But just as they were about to leave, the communications array buzzed to life. A transmission from an unknown source appeared on the screen, a direct link from the Galactic Council. Dr. Pharaoh's stomach dropped. The Council had already been made aware of the artifact, but they had remained neutral, watching as the research unfolded. But now, it was clear they had chosen a side. Evelyn Pharaoh, a voice crackled through the transmission, this is Director Jansen of the Galactic Council. We are aware of the artifact's current state and the potential consequences of its power. You and your team have made a grave mistake. Surrender the artifact to us immediately. You are out of your depth. Dr. Pharaoh's fingers clenched into fists. She knew this moment was coming. The Council had been aware of the artifact's potential all along, and now they wanted to take control of it. The reality was that they wouldn't stop until they had it for themselves, regardless of the cost. We will not surrender it, Dr. Pharaoh said, her voice unwavering. The artifact is too dangerous. You cannot control it. You can't let it fall into the wrong hands. You have no choice, Dr. Pharaoh, Director Jansen replied coldly. The artifact belongs to the Council now. Your mission is over. The transmission cut off abruptly, but the threat was clear. The Council would come for them. There was no time to waste. We'll have to get to the facility before they do, Dr. Pharaoh said, turning to Lena. The Council won't stop until they have it. We have to make sure they don't get their hands on it. Lena nodded, determination flooding her eyes once again. They were on the edge of something far greater than any of them could fully comprehend. And now, they had only one choice, to destroy the artifact before the forces that sought to control it could use it to change the course of humanity's future forever. They rushed to the docking bay, the ship waiting for them, ready to carry them into the heart of the galaxy. The mission had become clear: stop the artifact, prevent the Council from taking control, and protect humanity from a future they couldn't yet understand. As the ship's engines roared to life, Dr. Pharaoh glanced at Lena one last time. They had come this far together, and no matter the cost, they would finish this mission. The future of humanity was on the line, and only by destroying the artifact could they ensure that humanity's evolution remained their own to control.